Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, December 28th. This is episode 89 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe here on YouTube. Appreciate all of your support. It is week 17, only 2 weeks left this Sunday and next weekend, and we officially start to get ready and welcome the playoffs, wild card weekend, divisional round, title games, so on and so forth, all the way until the Super Bowl. Lots to discuss, though, in today's show. Lots that still needs to happen. Playoff positioning, one seeds in both the AFC and NFC, draft position in a lot of these games as well today. So we'll break that down as well a little bit later on. Hopefully everybody had a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. DiMari, another week. Only 2 more left, and we're into the playoffs. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Season has flown by. I cannot believe we're already in week 17. That's kind of crazy. But like you said, we have a lot of news today. A lot of things still to go on as far as playoff seeding, like you mentioned. And if you are a fan of teams like you and I, still meaning some football for you. If you got draft picks or you owe teams some draft picks, this is an important time as well, seeing where people kind of end up as the season goes to an end. But other than that, crazy week starting with DK Metcalf. Now we got some other things coming out of Vegas. So, lots of news. Let's get into it.
Yes, definitely. For the Tankathon fans, keep your eyes peeled on Tankathon. That is the, unfortunately, as I like to call it, the loser version of the playoff standings is keeping an eye on the Tankathon. As a Jet fan, we've had our eye on the Tankathon since September. We're almost at the finish line here, 4th overall pick. I believe Dallas right now inside the top 15 at 14. So we'll see how everything plays out there next week. And of course, we got the Raiders, Giants, the ultimate tank bowl today, which we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But before we get into all that, a lot to get into before that. And we'll start today with the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, some of the drama going on over there. But even before we get into that, they did play last night, took down the Green Bay Packers 41-24 on the back of a monster game from Derrick Henry. 36 carries, 216 yards, 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry's taken his lumps this year, whether it be, some of the fumbles. There's been some games where just production-wise he hasn't quite been there. As a whole, this Ravens offense, this Ravens team hasn't been, what they've been in these last couple of years. Derrick Henry specifically with the fumbling problem. But he goes out there last night and has a Derrick Henry vintage type of performance where the Ravens need a win to stay alive. They're on the road against a Packers team that, goes into the playoffs. We'll see kind of how everything plays out with them. They've certainly suffered their bumps and bruises, but he goes out there as a huge performance last night. So just before we get into Lamar stuff, what was your thoughts on the Ravens performance last night? Tyler Huntley, Derrick Henry lead Baltimore into Lambeau and pick up a much needed win. It was a must win. They lose, Steelers clinch the division. There's still a chance they're out of the playoffs by the end of today, but they put the pressure back on Pittsburgh now to pick up a win today against Cleveland, or else next week is a win and in for both teams up in Pittsburgh. So what was your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I learned something new last night. I didn't know that you could lean on your workhorse with the backup quarterback, and you win football games that way. That was kind of news to me. I just thought 36 carries for Henry, 4 for Josh Jacobs. Surely Josh Jacobs will see more touches. So thank you, Matt LaFleur, for ending my losing me the championship last night before I even had a chance to get it started. But on a serious note, other than that, shout out to the Ravens for getting it done. Shout out to going into Lambeau and getting it done. Like you said, this is a team that's dealt with a lot of ups and downs. Currently in the midst of it right now with ups and downs with some stuff going on with Lamar. But, it's already one thing to go on the road in general, but it's always been another thing to go into Lambeau around this time. It's even harder. So the Ravens got it done last night. And I think that's the way to do it. You lean on your running back. You take the ball out of the hands of your backup, which Tyler Huntley played a great game yesterday. We're being honest. We talked about it off air, but honestly, I'm not surprised. Derrick Henry did Derrick Henry things. Baltimore, still have a shot. That's all they needed. That's all they asked for. So shout out to Baltimore. Shout out for Harbaugh going in there and get it finished. So I love that for Baltimore. We talked about it off air. hopefully next week with Pittsburgh is meaningful and we are watching two teams try to win and get in. But as of now, you take your wins for what you can. You go day by day. So for Baltimore to be able to get the job done last night and stay alive, shout out to them for that.
Yeah, definitely. And last night was either a very good night or a very bad night in fantasy. You mentioned Josh Jacobs. Whether if you were starting Josh Jacobs, it was a very bad night. And if you were in the case of what I was in, which also in the championship game, going against Derrick Henry is really tough to now come back from. So I need to hope that Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua can have another monster week. And despite recent kind of struggles, or I should say back down to earth type of play from Jonathan Taylor, hopefully he can have a massive performance, and I don't know necessarily match Lamar or Derrick Henry, but potentially a big game. We'll see. But yeah, last night you give a lot of credit to the Ravens for going out there and picking up a win the way they did, especially coming off of a tough loss on Sunday night a week prior at home against the Patriots, where they had a lead in that game. They had some opportunities to pick up a win and they couldn't. Now you go out there with your backup quarterback, Derrick Henry, who has dealt with some criticism this year, to go out there and dominate like that. You give him a lot of credit. Now, with all that being said, they're 8-8. A Steelers win today knocks them out. A Steelers loss today, as you mentioned, sets up a Ravens-Steelers AFC North showdown. Winner takes the division and gets into the playoffs next week. So we'll see how that all plays out today. But with all of that, though, the Ravens, there's some drama, and there's some drama specifically around the starting quarterback. And I would even say there's some drama, or I guess some noise around the head coach and John Harbaugh and the potential of him potentially leaving, what's next for Lamar, where this Ravens team stands as a whole. So just what are your thoughts on the Lamar rumors, drama, and even Harbaugh a little bit as well, just the state of this Ravens team, 8-8, kind of on their last life from a playoff standpoint?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of talk about potentially moving on from Lamar, and Lamar Jacksons aren't birthed too often. Like, you can't just go and find another Lamar Jackson here and there at ease. So I think it'd be kind of like, not even kind of ridiculous. I think that would be one of the dumbest moves in Ravens history to move on from Lamar Jackson. And I know the main concern has been the injuries. That's what's coming up. Yeah, he missed time this year with the hamstring, and now he has the back contusion. That's going to happen. You are a mobile quarterback. You are going to take hits. That's going to happen. That's part of the game. Obviously, you hate to see it from your franchise guy, but we've talked about this so often, where you can't just go handpick in the draft and you go get a guy and it works out all the time. So even the thought and the ideal of no Lamar being in Baltimore is quite ridiculous, and I don't think the fan base would take that too well if it were to happen. I know another issue with Lamar, though, with the injuries, $74.5 million cap hit in 26 and 27. So you're looking at that and you're just like, that much money for a guy that we haven't been able to get 17 games out of the last, few years. Again, the 3 this year, 6 and 22, missed 5 and 21. So you're looking at that and you're like, hey, why are we paying you this money if you can't stay on the field? But once again, I mean, Lamar's a one-on-one athlete, 2-time MVP. He has shown you what he is in this league. So, I mean, if it comes down to Baltimore, if you send Lamar off, you set your franchise back, you ask me, 10 years. This is a guy that is so special, incredible talent. It's ridiculous that I'm even hearing Lamar Jackson probably being shipped out of Baltimore. It's insane.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see why the Ravens would do this. And we could break down the Harbaugh side of things here in a second. That's a little bit of a different story, but a lot of quarterbacks have gone through injuries. I mean, Joe Burrow is another notable name just in the division of a guy that has gone through a lot of injuries. And I get the concern of, his body and how it's going to last. He's 28. He'll be 29 in January when he hits into his early to mid 30s in a couple of years, where he's, 31, 32 years old. Is he able to play more than 12 games in a season? Is he going to be able to continue and play a 17-game season throughout the rest of his career? But I still think just the value of him when he's on the field, and I get this season's been a down year for him, but it's really been a down year for the entire team. The value with him on this field, I mean, he's an MVP caliber player. We're not talking about it's funny, you hear some Ravens fans almost talking like he's Kyler Murray.
Scrub, just the guy.
Scrub that's making a ton of money, who's hurt, and when he's out there, he's not playing well. This is the first year that I would probably say that his play is taking a little bit of a step back. But are we just going to pretend like this guy last year didn't go out there and throw 41 touchdowns? We're going to pretend like this guy is not arguably the best dual threat quarterback of all time. We're just going to ignore the fact that he went out there last year on top of the 4,000 passing yards. He had another 900 plus with his legs, won an MVP the year before that with the a monster season, both through the air and on the ground, obviously. Like, this is an MVP who hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs, and he's fallen short. But there's a lot of other quarterbacks out there. You don't see Bills fans calling for Josh Allen's head because he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs. Like, there's a lot of other quarterbacks kind of in this Patrick Mahomes era of quarterbacks that haven't gotten it done in the playoffs, Lamar being one of them. But yeah, I don't understand I understand it, but I don't agree with this whole Lamar outrage. I think it's been a bad season. They've taken a big step back. They're probably going to miss the playoffs. And a lot of times when that happens, fans, media, they look right at the quarterback and look right at the head coach. That's the first two things they look at. And that's where you're getting some of this criticism from Lamar. And you brought up the contract, and I kind of brought up Kyler Murray, right? The Kyler Murray contract, or even the Tua contract, like, those are bad contracts with players that aren't playing well. The Lamar contract, when he's at his best, he's arguably the best quarterback in the NFL when he's at his best. He's been shown to be proven every penny of that contract so far. So I'm right there with you on the Lamar stuff. Now, I do want to run this by you if you've seen this yet, but there were some rumblings as well from some off the field stuff. Lamar, there was a media member in Baltimore that talked in one of his columns or whatever, talking about kind of some immature behavior, I guess, if you will. He said, quote, "The breakdown of an NFL player's body is natural, but Jackson could help himself. He doesn't need to be up late night playing video games or falling asleep in team meetings." You buy into that at all? The falling asleep, because that's been another thing that's now popped up over the last couple days of this Lamar Jackson drama of off the field stuff, falling asleep in meetings, being late to meetings, not showing up to meetings. Do you buy into that?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't either. I don't. I mean,
here's why I
don't. Under the rug. Sorry, go. You can go.
No, yeah. Here's why I don't. I just don't believe it, because if this was happening, we would have heard about it weeks ago.
Exactly.
Like, if this was something that's been happening throughout his career, we would have heard about it. I mean, the Kyler Murray stuff, as much as we joke about Call of Duty, there's been real reports about not being the best teammate, not being very committed to, getting healthy. There's been some times where he's not always been committed to rehab. Like, we've heard about that stuff. If this was true about Lamar, we would have heard about it years ago. We would have heard about it earlier this season. This wouldn't just be up week 17, he's out. Let's throw out all these reports of him being late. Abdul Carter, same thing. The Abdul Carter stuff has come out progressively throughout the year of him showing up late. If a guy of Lamar Jackson's caliber, just from a reporting standpoint, was showing up late to meetings, we would have heard about this, and this would have been a knock on him for his entire career. Oh, well, he's a great player, but off the field, he's got to clean some things up. So that's just my vantage point on it. Like, we would have heard about this reporting way earlier than just December, week 17 of the NFL season. Let's just knock Lamar now.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, when you're winning MVPs and you're going to the playoffs, oh, it's great. We're going to sweep it under the rug, no problem. But now you're potentially out of the playoffs, and Lamar is out. They're not playing well, and everything's coming out about what he lacks, his character off the field. Like, no, I'm not buying into it. I'm right there with you. And another thing, too, this is reports from one person. Like, where's everyone else in Baltimore that has this news? Because this would be on multiple, different platforms. I mean, NFL Network would plaster Lamar Jackson if this was the truth. ESPN First Take would plaster Lamar Jackson if this was all the truth. I mean, I don't believe it. Even though, again, we're not in the locker room. We're not at practice. We're not seeing things behind the scenes. But Lamar doesn't give off that vibe and that type of energy from a guy that's kind of, I'm here when I want to be, whatever it is. I want MVPs. I've done this. You kind of see it in guys. We've seen with Michael Parsons this year, kind of how he went about things, laying on the training table, talking about certain things in his podcast. Lamar does nothing but show up to work, get the job done, and that I'm not buying that report at all.
I'm right there with you. And I also, and this is such a, it's such a tough argument because the whole quarterbacks and playoff success, all that stuff is, it's a very, iffy argument to go through whether you blame quarterbacks for playoffs, whether it's other whatever. But the point being is Lamar, because I've seen this as well, some Ravens fans and just reading in over the last couple of days, prepping for the show, reading into what's kind of taken place here with Lamar and following this story. There's been so much made of, oh, well, he hasn't had success in the playoffs. He's got 7 interceptions and 7 fumbles. He's 3-5 in his playoff career. And I get all that, but let's not act like Lamar is the only current NFL quarterback that hasn't had playoff success. Josh Allen hasn't had playoff success. Joe Burrow had playoff success, but still couldn't get it done in the playoffs. There's a lot of quarterbacks, or couldn't get it done in the Super Bowl, rather. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I mean,
Dak Prescott.
Dak, yes, Dak. Dak's another one that hasn't gotten it done. This one might be a little bit different, but Jared Goff hasn't gotten the Lions over the top. Now, he did get to the Super Bowl with the Rams, and Jared Goff's career is a little bit different than a Dak, a Burrow, an Allen, a Lamar, just because he's with his second team now, and he kind of needed his career revived a little bit, but he hasn't gotten it done. You want to even throw a Baker Mayfield out there. He hasn't gotten it done. Now, different circumstances. There's some quarterbacks that just play poorly in the playoffs. Some quarterbacks, they've had their defense go on them. And I'm not going to sit here and necessarily blame Baker Mayfield for the reason the Bucs haven't won. I think he's been held back a little by coaching. And I also think that team just in general kind of has a ceiling. And I would probably even say Baker Mayfield himself probably has a ceiling. I don't necessarily know if he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Different story, different day. But yeah, Dak, Lamar, there's been so many quarterbacks that haven't had success in the playoffs, and so many quarterbacks historically that haven't had success in the playoffs. I mean, Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. Is just because of that? Were you just going to say Dan Marino was sleeping in meetings? And we've gone through this before about Super Bowls, no Super Bowl quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl compared to quarterbacks that haven't won a Super Bowl. So I think that element as well as kind of came into play of people are now bringing up his playoff stuff and just now saying, oh, well, he's not showing up to meetings. That's why he's been terrible in the playoffs. That's just nonsense. Like, come on now. Does that mean Josh Allen sleeping in meetings because he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs?
And what I don't understand is how people don't understand. Playoff time turns up a notch. So everything that worked in the regular season, it's not working in the playoffs. Shout out Dan Campbell. You showed us that years ago. Being ultra aggressive, chasing the points, those type of things won't work come playoff time. And I think what people aren't understanding, I don't understand how, is there's 21 other people on those fields. And if those other 21 people aren't doing their job, the job's not going to get done. So you can sit here and blame the quarterback for all the faults in the playoffs times, and they're not getting it done, and they're not throwing for enough touchdowns. They're not throwing for enough yards. Different circumstance, but just stay with me. Max Brosmer just threw for 51 yards and won a football game the other day.
Yes.
So with that being said, it's just like you can get away with that type of stuff in the regular season when your defense plays so well. Circumstances are so much different when it's so much high intensity and it's win and go home come playoff time. Do you think that 51 passing yards would have got the job done in the wild card round? Absolutely not. So I think people need to step back and kind of realize, like, hey, a football team basically is a car. If the engine isn't working in the car, it doesn't matter if everything else is working. It's not going to get the job done. So sitting here blaming quarterbacks that gotten you there, and all the quarterbacks that you have named have not had great defenses. Like, we're not talking about 85 Bears defenses that they roll out there. These are quarterbacks that have put the teams on their back for 17 games, 16 games, whatever the case is, and get to playoff time where teams are going to play you a lot tougher, and they can't get the help they need from their weapons, from their defense, from their coaching staff. So I think you said it perfectly. I mean, we got to stop blaming the quarterbacks and look at it. Hey, if the others aren't getting their job done from, the equipment manager all the way up to the quarterback, you're not going to win a playoff game. It's that simple. Everyone has a part in winning playoff games.
100%. And I totally agree with that defensive standpoint as well. I mean, I even just go back to the 13 seconds, not to try and defend Josh Allen, but Josh Allen did just about everything he could in that game. Are we going to blame Josh Allen for 13 seconds? He went down, drove down, had a 6-play 70. I've just pulled it up now. 6 plays, 75 yards. That was the crazy Gabe Davis, I think, 4-touchdown game or whatever he had.
Yep.
He did everything he needed to do in that game. And the Bills put up 36 points. That should be enough to win. Instead, they play backed off defense. I believe Leslie Frazier was still the DC. I think he might have gotten canned the year after that. They let the Chiefs go down, kick a 49-yard field goal to tie that game, ultimately go into overtime. That was the whole overtime rules. Now it's changed since then with Allen never touched the ball in overtime. Point being, we're just going to blame that game on Josh Allen? No, it takes all 22 guys, 11 on offense, 11 on defense, coaches, all that stuff to – I mean, there's been so many coaching blunders in just playoff games as well. So the playoffs, it's such a, it's an interesting topic. And look, there are quarterbacks that do struggle. There are quarterbacks just flat out that just stink in the playoffs. And then there's our quarterbacks that they've played well in games and still haven't won because the defense, maybe that, Allen can be thrown in that category. So it's, I mean, even Burrow, right? They had going back to the AFC title game 2 years ago when the Bengals jumped off sides on defense to end the game. Who knows if they go on and win that game, but Burrow probably gets an opportunity to get the ball back, and who knows what happens. So I just don't buy into all this Lamar stuff. I don't, and I think he'll be a Baltimore Raven. I don't see the Ravens trading Lamar Jackson. I just don't see it. And if they do trade Lamar Jackson, I want to hear the plan. Who is going to fill in for Lamar Jackson? Who are they going to get that's going to do what Lamar Jackson's done? I want to know. You're talking about probably the best dual threat quarterback of all time. So who's that going to be? Who are they getting? Are they going to take a flyer on Drew Aller and he's going to work out? Like, who is it?
Well, you need a quarterback that can run that offense because they're not switching that whole entire offense around whoever they were to trade for. Nope. A hypothetical that I seen was Lamar to Miami and Tua in return and a bunch of draft picks. I don't think I think the crime rate in Baltimore is going to raise by at least 8% if that were to happen. That's not a good idea.
I would like to see that just to show people how dumb this whole Lamar thing is. Please take Tua. I want to see what Ravens fans will do with Tua.
Good luck with that. Who has to play in the cold very frequently in Baltimore, by the way. Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
That's a great point you just made. I haven't even thought of that with the whole Tua angle. If he goes to a cold weather team.
Eventually you adjust, but I mean, right now, I know the stereotype is Tua can't play in the cold, but he hasn't changed the narrative. Like he can't. So
he hasn't. No,
where will he go?
Yeah. Tua. What a mess. What about a Lamar for Kyler Murray trade? See, I would actually, maybe I'm crazy. I would actually do, if I was the Ravens, Lamar for Kyler before Lamar for Tua.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At least Kyler can run a very similar offense with Tua. There's no mobility whatsoever. If you think Derrick Henry carried the ball 36 times, get ready for 54 next year because Tua can't move.
No, and he turns the ball over like it's nothing. Yeah. So, anyway, that's the Raven stuff, Lamar. Now, quickly on Harbaugh, do you think he is back next season? Because that is, I think, something that is, I can understand. Now, I would not fire Harbaugh, but I could see it being more realistic, understand more the thinking behind it than the Lamar situation.
I think you have to keep him, and I know this has been quite the hot topic for us kind of throughout the year and the offseason. It's very similar, not saying you're on the Mike Tomlin level, but you kind of look at the same Mike Tomlin arc where it's just like you are competitive in that division every single year where you have the best quarterback in that division, arguably. So I don't think you can move on from it. I mean, you kind of look at some of the playoff blunders that we talked about. I don't want to point a finger at one guy, but Mark Andrews has been a big reason for a lot of those shortcomings and just his awful play come playoff time. You can't put that on Harbaugh. I mean, I think he has done enough to get the guys prepped on a game day, ready to go, and go out there and win games. And as a unit, they just don't get it done. So I think it would be foolish to move on from him. And you kind of look at the coaching carousel right now. Who's going to replace him?
Yep.
So I think you got to keep him.
I'm right there with you. Harbaugh and Tomlin kind of fall under the same umbrella of if they were to get Can, there would be over half the league calling for them to be hired. A couple other coaches as well. You know, before the season, if Shanahan would have gone Can, that obviously won't happen. But there was kind of maybe a little bit of momentum of Shanahan's seat being a little bit warm with the way things have gone the last couple of years with San Fran not getting it done and missing the playoffs, all that stuff. But they've obviously turned it around, and there's a chance that the NFC is going to run through Santa Clara, and ultimately the Super Bowl will be in Santa Clara as well this year. So we'll see how that all goes. But even a little floor, as much as we could criticize the Packers, there would be tons of teams calling for Matt LaFleur if he were to get canned. So I'm right there with you on Harbaugh. Now, moving on here to another team with a quarterback situation that is in dire straits now, and really just the Colts are, man, what a season for the Colts. Yeah. Before I get into this, have you seen the meme of Sauce Gardner on the top of Tankathon?
Yes.
You have seen that, okay. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one. Because really he should be. Sauce Gardner really could be the number one overall pick, get the number one overall pick this year. He should have the number one overall pick of what team he wants to go to. Because he went from the 1-7 Jets, he goes to the Colts and they go 1-6. And they're probably going to go 1-7, or he'll probably go 1-8 actually with the Colts. Because they're probably not beating Jacksonville and they're probably not beating Houston. So Sauce Gardner this season essentially went 2-15. And he still is not going to make the playoffs. Either way, moving on from that, the Colts are officially eliminated. Shout out DeMeco Ryans and the Houston Texans. They deserve a ton of credit. And maybe next week we can even dive into them a little bit more. DeMeco Ryans, I think, honestly, is one of the more underrated. I feel like he's gotten underrated at this point. What this guy has done with the Houston Texans to turn that team in from what they were, a train wreck. You couldn't pay fans to go to those games, to turn them around to back-to-back 10-win seasons. You win 2 playoff games, that you win both the wild card games in each of those seasons. And then to take a team this year that starts 0-3, you got Davis Mills starting some games, and then to take them and win upwards to potentially 12 games this year is unbelievable. And what he's done with that defense is phenomenal. So with all of that, Colts are now eliminated. The fun Daniel Jones Colts story was over a couple weeks ago, but I think it was starting to dwindle out even before Daniel Jones got hurt, because they lost that Steelers game. They then came back and beat Atlanta in London, barely. And then they came back, lost to the Chiefs in overtime. Then they lost to the Texans. Daniel Jones ended up getting hurt in that Jacksonville game. Even prior to that, Daniel Jones got banged up. And you could start to see it kind of bombing out a little bit. They've now lost 5 in a row. 44-year-old Phillip Rivers hasn't come to save him. So just what are your thoughts on the Colts right now, the situation where they're eliminated from the playoffs, this fun story of starting, they were 7-1, then 8-2, now they're 8-7. It's over for them.
This team's a train wreck. As good as it looked, as good as the Sauce move looked, this team's a train wreck, and it sucks to see because the roster is actually pretty good. It's actually a very good team on the offensive side. On paper, I mean, we're talking about a team that has not made the playoffs since, I believe, 2020. Was that the COVID year? Has not made the playoffs since 2020. 2023, they had a chance. They missed out on the big drop. We all know the story on that, and that's how Houston's Cinderella run from then to now has started. It's bad. I mean, and I think, they made the right moves and they got the right guy as the head coach. I think they have a lot of good things going for them. They just cannot piece it together quite yet. This year, it was unfortunate. I mean, you lose Daniel Jones. You kind of, like you said, you kind of fizzed out there after that super hot start. And honestly, I think if Daniel Jones was still playing, I think this team probably still losing in the wild card. I think they were back to earth, and we were starting to see that. It started in Pittsburgh, actually. We were starting to see that.
Yep.
But, I mean, for the Colts, I mean, you kind of got to hurt for them. But with everything going on, I don't want to pinpoint at one guy, but it kind of makes me think how much things would be different if they did not take Anthony Richardson with the fourth round pick. And I know Anthony Richardson has not played this year, which is the problem. He has not played this year, so I'm not saying he came into Indianapolis and he ruined that organization like the Grim Reaper meme, knocking on doors. But I mean, I just feel like where they're at right now, and we're talking about, and I'm bringing this up because Daniel Jones obviously will not be playing for the Colts next year with the injury. So it's kind of tough where you draft a guy that high up and the guy's played 17 games in 3 years, and now you're not even sure what your situation is with him next year. Your starter won't be there next year. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for Jonathan Taylor. I feel bad for Michael Pittman. But this is a team that has so much potential if they can put it all together.
Yeah, they need a quarterback, and here we are again. And this is the problem I have with the Colts is this is another year of just a quarterback revolving door that they've been on, which is crazy because they've been on this revolving door really since 2018, at the final year of Andrew Luck. Because then they went with Brissett in 2019, then they had Rivers in 2020, and then it was Wentz, then it was Matt Ryan, then you had Gardner Minshew, then you had Anthony Richardson, and now you've had Daniel Jones, now you've got Phillip Rivers again, Riley Leonard. It's a mess. Like they need, and that's what's rough for them. And look, selfishly, it works out better for the Jets that they keep losing because we have their pick, and now they're guaranteed a top 18 pick. The Jets will probably find a way to screw up both picks as they usually do, but we can enjoy the draft capital while we have it, at least now. But in all seriousness, though, like you thought you had something with Daniel Jones. You thought you had another one of these Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield resurgence. But towards the end there of Daniel Jones, even prior to the injury, they started to lose games. They weren't playing as well. It all started kind of with that loss in Pittsburgh. Then they barely beat Atlanta overseas. Here we are again with the quarterback where we don't really know who the starter is week one. And they don't have a first round pick to get a quarterback this year. They have talent. They have the pieces. They just need the quarterback, and they need a healthy quarterback, and they don't have that. Now, I don't know if they'll bring Daniel Jones back or not. Probably, right?
Yeah, I think you have to. I know he's only played a handful of, but I think you got to. It would kind of be a disservice as much as he has done through this season to not bring him back. Yeah, I think they'll bring him back, and you have to bring in somebody else. But they need a franchise quarterback. They need to find their franchise quarterback, and who knows what now they're kicking the Daniel Jones can down the road to probably 2027, maybe late next season. So you still really don't know you don't know what Daniel Jones is going to be at that point, coming off the Achilles a year or two from now. They don't have a first round pick, like I mentioned. They're in a rough spot. And when you look at some quarterback options, potentially his return to the AFC South. I know we talked a little bit about off air, but when you look at some of the options for the quarterbacks, one of them maybe played last night. It's at this rate, you're kind of just gambling. I mean, You're in such a tough situation where I guess as far as next year, you cannot possibly go wrong because either way, you're going bridge next year regardless.
Yep.
So the thing is, do you trade Anthony Richardson, maybe get a few more picks for this year's draft, and you sign Malik Willis, and you roll Malik Willis out there? Do you sign Daniel Jones back and still trade Richardson and, kind of roll out with Riley Leonard next year? It's so tricky on what they can do. Like they have so many avenues, but none of those avenues point to like, hey, we're going to be good. We're going to be competitive. And you mentioned it off air and you worded it perfectly actually. But what Malik Willis, like, okay, you see him play well last night. Is that a Matt LaFleur product? Like, is he going to come to Indy and still play as well where now the team is his? and do what you can for a year, which not, nothing against him as a player, but that time in Tennessee did not work out. That's why he is in Green Bay right now. So it's kind of tricky. And I mean, again, this sounds like me just being a hater and pointing a finger. It all comes down to what you're going to do with Anthony Richardson. Are you going to play him next year and bring Daniel Jones back? Hopefully, and you hope maybe Richardson has learned a lot from Daniel Jones this year while he's been on IR. Do you trade him? He's only going to be 24, when next season starts. So do you trade him, try to get some pieces? You roll out Riley Leonard, then you're bringing in Malik Willis. They're kind of in like a no man's land with a bunch of options at quarterback, and it's a good and a bad.
Yeah, and you're spot on with the whole Anthony Richardson assessment. That's what happens with a lot of these teams. You miss on a top 5 pick like that, number 4th overall, you're going to be chasing that mistake for a couple of years. If Anthony Richardson works out in an alternate universe, we're probably looking at the Colts as, I mean, the AFC South, we'd be looking at a loaded division because you'd be looking at a Texans team who won 11 games with C.J. Stroud in that defense, obviously what the Jaguars, Liam Cohen's been able to do in year 1, and an Anthony Richardson who would be probably have this Colts team right in the mix in the AFC South as well. That's the big thing, and you're spot on with that. That's the big miss was Richardson, because you miss on Richardson. He had a bad year, or he hasn't really shown. He really hasn't had any. He hasn't had a
played 2 games.
Yeah, he played 2 games. 2023, right? He actually played decent the first couple of games.
Yeah,
was getting hurt, and then Minshew was the rest of the way. They almost won. They almost got to the playoffs. We all know that year of the drop, and they finished 9-8. And then a year later, it didn't work out last season. They win 8 games. But that's to me, that's prime Colts issues right now. Just look at their records. So they went 9 since the 2020 playoff run. 9-8, 4-12-1. That was the weird Jeff Saturday season. And then 9-8, 8-9. They're probably going to go 8-9 this year. So they're 1 or 2 wins away from being a playoff team. They're a couple wins away from being in the mix in that division. They were 8-2 at one point this year. They were well on their way to potentially winning the division. I mean, heck, they were the 1 seed at one point. As crazy as that sounds, they had the 1 seed. We thought the AFC playoffs for a little bit there would run through Daniel Jones and Lucas Oil Stadium. Like, that's how good they were. That's how high they were at the beginning of this season. But the point I bring up with all those records is, if you just get consistent quarterback play, that those 9-8 and 8-9 seasons turn into 10-11 win seasons. So that's kind of the hope part of it from the Colts is, and we went through this, all the talent that they have. You have arguably the best running back in the NFL. You have Michael Pittman, who is a solid one. You have Tyler Warren, who I think shown you a lot of good in his rookie season. He'll probably surpass 800 yards. Right near the top of tight ends. I think he might actually be near the top among all tight ends in the NFL. Solid offensive line. Defensively, they've got some pieces. They just need the quarterback. They need consistent quarterback play. And they thought they had that with Daniel Jones, and then that fizzles out. And Phillip Rivers hasn't been. I mean, he put up some points last week. He had some drives last week, but Phillip Rivers is not a part of the long-term solution here. But that's the Anthony Richardson issue. Is if Anthony Richardson was good, none of this would be talked about. And that was a reason they had to chase kind of another veteran in Daniel Jones, a reclamation project. So, and here's the problem though, is time's running out on Shane Steichen. Like, we could talk about, and this is a little bit of an issue with Indy as well, is the timelines of all this. Shane Steichen, this is now his 3rd year and they haven't made the playoffs. I get the quarterback. I get the unfortunate circumstances of the Daniel Jones injury. But at some point, you've got to win. So, like, is he on the hot seat next season? Probably. I mean, or like, how are we? That's another issue with Indy is you have a coach that you have a coach and you have a roster that you feel pretty good about, and you have a coach that showed you this year with good quarterback play he can win. Once that good quarterback play got hurt, though, everything fizzled out, which would happen to a lot of coaches. But like, this is 3 years now of not making the playoffs. How many more years is he going to get?
Yeah, I mean, I think next year which next year's even tricky because you're in that weird transition of okay, we don't have our guy necessarily, so expectations aren't too high. And I think this year also kind of tricky. Like, where's the gray line? There's no expectations for the Colts coming into this year, like not at all. And they surpassed them, when they did. So you're kind of looking at how the season played out for them, and you're sitting at the 1 seed, and everything looks good. Okay, we figured it out. You suffer a brutal injury to your quarterback, and now you miss out. But the expectations were never like win now as it is. So do you kind of take that into consideration going into next season where we now know what Daniel Jones can bring to this team? So let's give him another year. We go out there, we win however many games we can win, and then 27, Daniel Jones comes back. But then we're talking about guys missing an entire year of football that you have to
Yeah.
rely on. It's tricky.
And look, I don't want to, and this is the whole issue with the timeline and why they're in a really bad spot right now. I don't want to. I'm not trying to just hate on Daniel Jones. I know we've joked about Daniel Jones in the past, with the Giants and stuff, and I don't want to just. He had a great year, but these things started to fizzle out a little bit before the injury. I don't think everybody quite understands that. Like, they started to lose some games. I think 3 or 4 prior to him getting hurt, and I know he had the fracture that ended up happening anyway that he was trying to play through. But even in a Pittsburgh game, they couldn't win that, and he was healthy in that game. Point being is that's probably the plan they take, but it's very risky because was this just kind of a hot stretch, or is that really who Daniel Jones is? Yeah. And putting all your eggs in the Daniel Jones 2027 basket it could have you right back up here at the end of 27, right where we are now, which is we still don't have a quarterback because Daniel Jones is not what he was in 2025. So it's a tough spot. And, I think Chris Ballard too has made some mistakes. The Sauce Gardner trade is going to come back to bite him without having a pick this year in the first round. And then the whole Anthony Richardson thing. I mean, just asking you, did you going back to the Anthony Richardson? Because I personally didn't like the pick. Did you understand or like the pick at all? Probably not, right?
I've watched too much not good Anthony Richardson football as a Florida fan. I didn't like it. And I mean, I know I'm about to sound like a broken record here, but this is a guy, again, where, you throw these miraculous 60, 65-yard bombs and you're just like, oh my goodness, look at the potential. But then you get on the goal line and you can't throw the 3-yard out route, to the back pylon or the front pylon. And that's an issue. You see him using his legs and his athletic ability. He's great as the next coming of Lamar Jackson. But then you see some of the decision making with pressure, and I didn't like it. I kind of thought he needed another year or two in college, but I also didn't think he was ready to step in and be the starter for the Colts and a franchise guy. He needed to sit and develop for at least 2 years. So they kind of threw him in the fire. So it sucks for him, but I didn't like the pick.
Yeah. And I'll also throw this out here, and I don't want to. This is so hindsight 2020. But the Colts probably could have done, and I get it was a quarterback competition between Richardson and Daniel Jones. They added Riley Leonard. This was a team that a lot of people saw winning 3 to 4 games. The Colts were supposed to be terrible this year. But they didn't do a very good job of putting a backup behind Daniel Jones either. And that does also fall in the front office at times too. They didn't, and I get the whole, this was supposed to be, quarterback competition, all that stuff, but your backups behind Daniel Jones were Anthony Richardson, who was hurt, and then after that, it was Riley Leonard. And you clearly had no trust in Riley Leonard because then you picked up 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. So if you didn't have any trust in Riley Leonard, why was he the backup? And Daniel Jones has gone hurt in each of the past 2 seasons. That's been one problem. That is a problem with Daniel Jones that I don't think gets talked about enough. He gets injured a lot. I mean, he's never played a full 17-game season. Now, a little bit of that is skewed because the 2022 year 1 with Dable, they sat him the final week of the season. So because to rest him. So that's a little skewed. But outside of that, he's never played a full season. He's always banged up, whether it was the ACL in 23, last year missed some time, and then, ultimately got released and all that mess. But so it's Tricky spot. The Colts right now are honestly, the Colts are just mediocre. Like they are as far away from the number one overall pick as they are. They kind of where they're at. Like they're 8-9, 9-8 every single year. They don't get to the playoffs. They don't have a quarterback, but they find a way to still be competitive without good quarterback play. So it's no Phillip Rivers in the playoffs. So now we wait. Malik Willis, as we mentioned, will be an option. I think they need probably a younger option with upside to maybe hope that can be kind of your lottery ticket of go out and let's say get a Malik Willis and he turns into the guy, as opposed to, a Mariota or any of these other veterans where they're just stopgaps. Like I think the Colts need to try and take a shot at finding their answer this year, whether that's Malik Willis, whether it's making a trade. Yeah, I don't think they would trade for Kyler Murray, but yeah, I mean, Willis take somebody in the middle rounds. We'll see. Anyway, that's the Colts situation. We move on now to two AFC West stories, and then we'll get to our underdog picks here to close things out. We'll start with Travis Kelce. Do you think, I'll just ask straight up, do you think he's done?
Yes. You got it. He has to be.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Not even. Well, he's washed. He's washed. He's definitely washed. But I feel like there's nothing left to prove. I mean, if this team was still had Mahomes and let's just say lost in the divisional round and like, hey, another piece or two here and there, we can make another run at a Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's over. And we talked about this last week, so I'm not gonna go too much back into the whole gist of it, but that era of Mahomes, Kelce, and so on, it's done. I mean, I feel like he has nothing else left to prove. I feel like this team will not be in contention next year. So I don't think, Mahomes is going to be full strength and ready to go. So while your legacy is high right now, he still had a pretty decent year. Watch as he was, he still had a pretty good year. I think you just go ahead and you wrap it up. It's time to go.
Yeah, I agree. Just a way you could kind of get a telltale sign sometimes of if these guys are about to retire with the way they handle the last couple games or where they lacked in like the last home game. And to me, he was high-fiving the fans. Just the way he was carrying himself. I mean, even pregame on the sideline, I saw something with him. I kind of just taking it in. To me, that looked like a guy that was playing in his last ever home game and was going to retire at 36 years old. And he should. You kind of spot on with the whole legacy thing. I mean, he's not the same player he once was. We talked about this last week, so I don't want to completely repeat myself, but it's been a pretty sudden fall from grace, I guess, if you will, with Kelce. And frankly, the Chiefs as a whole. I mean, this was a team that was going for a three-peat last year. Now their quarterback tore his ACL and they're going to miss the playoffs. They got their third-string quarterback playing. So really the Chiefs as a whole have kind of just hit a wall pretty quickly. It hasn't been a slow decline. They've just dropped. I mean, they went from 3 straight Super Bowls to missing the playoffs. Same thing with Kelce. This was a guy that, had the 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons where he was just a monster best tight end year in and year out. And then 2023 had a good year as well, missed 2 games, but was on pace for another 1,000-yard season. And then last season just fell off a cliff. And in this season, same thing. Has not nearly been the same player he was 2-3 years ago. It's been a pretty sudden drop-off for Kelce. So I think his time's up, and I think that this whole Chiefs core, it's kind of a little bit of a retool that's needed, a little bit of a reset that's needed. Kelce gone, Mahomes now hurt. Not that Mahomes is gone, but they need to retool a bit. And I think part of it is Kelce retiring. Now, the whole Kelce Hall of Fame thing, you think he's a gold jacket?
1,000%.
Yes.
I mean, I think the debate is Gronk and Kelce. I don't remember when Tony Gonzalez. I forgot
Yeah, well, he
how
just
good he was. I
disappeared.
don't know why he's not mentioned, but I mean, you just look at Kelce and just his stats overall. I think he is second behind TG if we're being honest. But if we're just talking about a guy, let's go off a playoff performance for instance. I think he's ranking first in catches, yards, and touchdowns as a tight end in NFL history. So I mean, this is a guy that elevated his game come postseason. Like that is very special. So I think again, kind of saying with Lamar Jackson, you're not going to see too many more Travis Kelce. It's like and I know the skill set. I'm not saying from the skill set aspect of it. Like yeah, you can find guys very similar skill set, but just the dominance, the efficiency, the consistency. I don't think you're going to find that much more. So I think Gold Jacket 100% first. If you ask me, I think first ballot. If we're being honest.
Yeah, I'm totally right there with you. First ballot Hall of Famer. This is one of the greatest tight ends of all time. And you just look at the numbers, he's right up there with the greatest. I mean, he's third all time in receptions. He's actually ahead of guys like Antonio Gates, who's in the Hall of Fame, ahead of Shannon Sharp, Ozzie Newsome, all guys that are in Hall of Fame, even Kellen Winslow, who's a little bit further down the list. Yards, same thing. Third all time in yards, ahead of Antonio Gates, Shannon Sharp, only behind Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten. And in touchdowns, he's fourth all time, or fifth all time rather. And Gronk will eventually, have his gold jacket. But Antonio Gates all time in touchdowns, Tony Gonzalez both in Canton, Ohio. Shannon Sharp is actually behind Travis Kelce, so he's ahead of him. He is just terms of like dominance, productivity. I think, it's funny. We talk about like different tight ends. I guess Gronk is more of you can kind of label tight ends in different ways. And I guess you could do the same thing with the receivers. Like physically dominant tight end, like Gronk's probably more physically dominant than what Kelce is in terms of, if that makes sense. Or like Megatron as a receiver is arguably one of the more physical dominant receivers of all time. Mm-hmm. Is he the best? No. Kelce, just in terms of productivity and just skill and talent and the amount of 1,000-yard seasons he has, and statistically the achievements that he's hit, third all time in yards, just puts him in Canton alone. So I agree. Now I am curious because I haven't talked Jason Witten in a while. As a Cowboys fan, where does Jason Witten fall in the tight end all-time rankings? So it's funny. I shouldn't say that because I had a conversation with some friends of mine a couple weeks ago about the top 5 tight ends of all time. So the Tony Gonzalez, the Antonio Gates, Shannon Sharps, the Gronks. Heck, even Greg Olsen. I wouldn't say he's in the top 5, but he's another name that you throw out there in the top 10. There's some names. Where do you throw Jason Witten in all of this?
Probably 6. I don't know if that's crazy. I mean, Shannon Sharp was before our time, so I didn't watch
same.
Shannon Sharp, so maybe I need to call my dad.
Kellen Winslow, all of those guys were.
Like, some of those guys, like, I might need to call my dad. It's like, hey, how dominant were they actually?
Yeah.
But I'll probably go 6.
Yeah. Well, let's rank them. So it's probably Tony Gonzalez 1.
Yeah.
And then who's your 2?
I'm going Kelce too. That's
Kelce too.
A hot take. I mean, if you look at it, Gronk has just more touchdowns, 10 more touchdowns, I think, than Kelce. But Kelce is leading in everything else. So Kelce 2, Gronk 3, Antonio Gates 4.
So you would put Gronk ahead of Antonio Gates?
I think so.
Yeah, Antonio. Yeah.
That's tough.
Part of me would even put Gates 2.
Whew.
Antonio Gates.
He was dominant though. He was.
Yeah. It's Kelce probably, because Kelce leads Gates in receptions and yards. Gates has the most touchdowns of all time. So I probably put Kelce ahead of Gates. I just feel like Rob Gronkowski is, when you think of like I guess it's Mount Rushmore. When you think of like Mount Rushmore tight ends, it's Gates, Kelce, Gronk, Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Usually. So I guess Gronk 4. And a number 5 is kind of a mix between like a Jason Wynn. Statistically, Jason Wynn probably is 5. Now, he did play a long time. And that's something I'm curious because he played a lot more than Kelce. Now, not that matters, but to reach these statistical milestones, like Shannon Sharpe.
Well, a few of those years for Jason Witten didn't count. I don't know if you remember his time with the Raiders, but
yeah, the one
few of those years don't count.
Yeah, and in the right into the ESPN booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the 2020 season with the Raiders, that erased that from the memory bank.
Yeah.
And I don't think he played in 2018.
Yeah.
Was he hurt?
I think he was injured. If I remember 18, that was.
Or no, he retired and he came back. I think I do remember that. He did retire.
18
I knew something was with it. Witten did retire because he was in the ESPN booth for a year and then he came out of retirement. And like you said, few of those years don't count because then he came back to Dallas for a year and he was washed.
Yeah.
And he went to the Raiders and he was washed.
Yeah.
So it's really with Witten, it's 2017 and prior.
Yeah.
Witten probably is 5 or Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe is like your 5, 6. And then Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen's probably 7.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And then you throw the Jimmy Grahams of the world, Vernon Davis. I don't think Kittle's there yet, but by the end of his career, Kittle will probably be knocking at the door of being in the top 10.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, staying in the AFC West, Max Crosby, some drama with him and the Raiders, ruled out this week, probably done for the season. Left the Raiders facility after being told he's being shut down. They placed him on IR, and there was a video. I don't know if you've seen the video, but of him playing basketball.
Yep, and dunking on the trampoline and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bad look for the Raiders. Obviously, we got the bit. I'm actually looking forward to this game today. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a sicko. I don't know why. I'm actually kind of looking forward to this game now. Bills Eagles will be, I'll be mainly watching that as the prime time 4:00 game. But Giants Raiders is a game that I'll be flipping on because it's obvious neither of these teams want to win, and rightfully so. What are your thoughts on the Max Crosby situation, though? It's kind of a bad look for the Raiders. He wants to play. It's funny with Max. I kind of feel bad for Max Crosby a little bit. I understand he's making a ton of money. I get all that. But the Raiders have sucked all these years with him on it. Now they're shutting him down when he clearly doesn't want to be shut down, when he's clearly not hurt. He leaves the facility. I feel like we've had a couple situations where Max Crosby, like, people say, he's going to request a trade, and he doesn't. This might be the last straw. What are your thoughts?
That's why it's kind of hard to feel bad. I mean, I understand the big thing is you want to give a team loyalty. And obviously, just history of Max Crosby and some of the stuff that he's dealt with, the Raiders giving him that chance, like, that's huge. You want to stay there. You want to owe them loyalty. But you just signed a 3-year mega contract in March. And the thing is, I'm kind of so iffy in between the whole build it up, stay loyal to your team, and then go win somewhere. This team's not winning anything ever. You are in a division now where the Broncos have figured it out. Now, you're not being competitive in that division. So for like Max Crosby's sake, back in March, if you knew this team wasn't going to be any good, why re-sign? Why not request a trade when you need to request a trade? Because now you're about to wait later on, which it might work in your favor, I guess, because you might still get the contract that you got and you go find somewhere to win. But I think Max Crosby's 28. Like you're wasting prime years trying to be
Yep.
loyal to an organization who stinks, who has always stinked. And they have tried so many different things and tried so many different pieces of tape and band-aid with Derek Carr here, Devontae Adams here. And these different pieces, it's not working. They're never going to be good. Go get your money elsewhere, even if you take a pay cut. If you take a pay cut to somewhere that is going to win, that is going to treat you good, go do that. So
Yep.
it's kind of hard to feel bad for the guy. Like I'm on the right path for you where you do feel bad because you're like, this guy is so good and he can honestly step in somewhere and be an immediate factor and elevate a defense. But you chose to sign a 3-year deal back in March. So hard to feel bad for a guy knowing this team stinks and you wanted to return.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree with that sentiment. It's a rough look just for the Raiders in general with can't we make it any more obvious that we're not trying to tank? And you're spot on. The Raiders are never going to be good. I mean, how many different variations of the Raiders do we have to try? You had the Derek Carr, then you had Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. It failed. Now you brought in Geno. You have Geno and Pete Carroll. It's not just failed. It is blown up. It's a disaster. I don't even know if Fernando Mendoza can save the Raiders. I really don't.
No.
I just look at the roster. The roster's not good. They don't have a good roster. They have Brock Bowers, great. Ashton Genty has been solid this year. I would say he's been a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
But he's been okay. He hasn't been bad. But I mean, the receivers, they stink. I mean, the receivers are awful. Since they got Trey Tucker's their number one receiver.
Yeah.
Defensively, they've got issues. They're a joke. So yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Now, I have seen this. Do you think anything will change with the NFL and the whole tanking? Or do you, because I don't think they'll ever go to a lottery, but every year we get to this point where we get to like these tank games where teams are clearly not trying to win. It's funny. There's a proposal I don't know if you ever saw that, the proposal, I think Jeremy Fowler might have posted it again yesterday or whatever. But somebody from Barstool, like last year, said you have to have 4 wins or whatever to eligible for the first overall pick or something like that. So then it makes games like today with the Raiders, like can we do like something alternate where the Raiders and Giants need to win today? It would create great drama. That would it never happened. It's just this is it's just for conversation, but yeah.
I necessarily wouldn't mind it at all, if we're being honest. Because, it does still make games a little more meaningful instead of 2 teams is about to roll me and you out there to play quarterback as soon as we're wrapping up here. But then again, I mean, in a situation of, obviously, for the Giants, for instance, this has been a team that's been drafting top 10 for quite some time. So if they've tanked all these years and they can't seem to draft the right guy, why does it matter if they're going to suck the next year as well? So from that aspect of it, I'm kind of like, who cares? Like, these teams knew they weren't good for 13 weeks, and then all of a sudden where they're just like, if we're going to be that bad, let's go ahead and be bad and go get a draft pick. I don't see nothing wrong with it, but I do also kind of agree where, for instance, if you are in the network market where you got to watch the Raiders and the Giants, you're just like, why is this on my TV? Neither team is trying to win. But as of now, I don't see nothing wrong with the tank. I think it's the way to build your organization up.
Yes.
And a lot of times it doesn't work out anyways.
No, it doesn't. Because a lot of these organizations are terrible. That's why they've won 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
And the quarterback and the coach or whatever they decide to bring in, usually they hire and draft the wrong people.
Yeah.
Or they draft the right people. Cough, cough, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. But the teams that they got drafted to are such a mess that we don't see their talent until years down the road. So, anyway, let's dive into underdog picks. So, we both agreed. We both had Texans yesterday, so that gives us a win this week. But not counting that right now, I'm 26 and 22. You are 23 and 25. So, we're 3 games apart with 2 weeks to go, or today and next week. We both went 2-1 last week. You could begin. I think you began last week, and since we both tied, you could start us off.
All right. Thank you to the Texans for that. Starting me off with a win. I am also going to go Bears plus 3.5 for my other one. The Bears kind of have nothing to play for. I mean, they already clinched the NFC North just like we drew it up. So shout out to the Bears. Shout out Ben Johnson. We talked so bad about this team the first few weeks, but they figured it out. They got it done. And I know it's meaningless tonight in San Fran, but hey, why not continue to chase a higher seed if able to? So give me Bears plus 3.5. I don't know about this last one. I guess we'll go Browns plus 4.5. I was going to consider switching it to the Cardinals. I'm gonna go Browns plus 4.5. I mean, no DK for the Steelers today, and I just kind of just don't trust this Steelers team, even with everything on the line today. They're going to find a way to beat Pittsburgh when it's all said and done. So I like the Browns and Shador to go out there and at least cover. So give me Cleveland plus 4.5.
All right, I like those, and I'm pretty much kind of right on board with those as well. I also took the Browns plus 4.5. I think this is more of a rooting interest for me than it is. I actually feel that the Browns are going to win. I want the Browns to win, number one, so they could hurt their draft pick and the Jets could jump them, but also because I'd like to see some AFC North drama going into the final week of the season. So I'll go Browns as well, and I also had the Bears down too. I had them at plus 3 at first, but it did move to plus 3.5, so I guess more of a reason to take the Bears. I know they clinched the division last night. I'm starting to believe more into the Bears. I kind of said that after the Eagles game that I was starting to buy into them a little bit more. All season long, I did not buy into them. I'm starting to buy into them a little bit more now. And I think they take care of business tonight against the Niners, take care of business probably next week against the Lions. We're probably looking at a 13-4 Bears team. Huge credit to Ben Johnson. I had my doubts going into the season, and I think he gets the job done. So I'll roll with those as well. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, just one question before we wrap it up. Caleb Williams needs 600 yards.
Oh, yes.
To be the first 4,000-yard passer in Bears history. Does he do it this year?
600 yards? Yeah, he does. He's right at 3,400. Probably not. Right? Because he's going to need what? I mean, if he gets he's going to need no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think he plays next week.
Over 300 once this year. And he would probably need to throw for over 300.
Yeah.
In at least one of these games.
Welcome to I'm going to start calling that as of 12/28 the Drake May Club, where you cannot throw for 300 yards and just still have. I think Drake May's done it one time this year, but you just don't throw for 300 yards and you still have a very great year. So I am now introducing the Drake May Club for quarterbacks that
you don't have to throw for 300 yards and you could still win the MVP.
That's something new now has been founded. Absolutely.
Yes. All right. That'll do it for us. Appreciate you all as always. One more weekend of football next week, Saturday, Sunday. So we'll be back for that. And then, of course, we'll be here for all of the playoff drama and so on and so forth. So appreciate you all as always. Until next time, thank you for watching and enjoy the games today.